Hello, my name is Dick Fleming, and during the Vietnam War I was a member of 1st Force Recon and Recon Battalion, and I wrote about my stories, about my adventures in Vietnam in a book called Chasing Charlie, which is available on Amazon. And there's also a website that I created called firstforcerecon.com, that's the URL. And there's some photographs there of my time in the service, as well as some photographs that other people have sent me that I've posted. So it's a good resource if you're interested in that era and the recon community in general. Today I'm going to tell you about my longest patrol in Vietnam. Normally our patrols lasted maybe 10 days, something like that, a week, 10 days. And we were able to get out. Sometimes they lasted only a few minutes if we were shot out right off the bat. But this particular patrol lasted nearly 3 weeks, and it was quite something to be without food for a couple of weeks. Our objective, we were told, was to cross over the border and evaluate the effects of a bombing run on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Now, at this point, Force Recon have been running missions deep within Laos and Cambodia for quite a while. It became rather routine for us. As a matter of fact, when you went into the jungle, of course, there's no landmark saying where things are. You're just going by your map, and it's only a line on the map. But it did give us amusement to hear Nixon on the radio talking about how there's no American combat troops in Vietnam that are working in Laos or Cambodia. Well, that was just BS, because we went across that border all the time. There were a few other groups who did too. I guess that Special Operation Group of the Army. I don't know whether other groups went over, but we went deep into those areas. And of course, it was all secret at the time. And I probably shouldn't be talking about it even now. But after 60 years, I think I'll be safe from the black helicopters. So in any case, we were told that we were briefed by an Air Force major who came over, and he described on the map the area that we'd be searching to see whether or not there would be any enemy activity left. And he didn't think so. He thought that his bombers had obliterated that area of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that there would be nothing left. A previous team had identified a large cache ammunition depot, and one of our missions was to see whether that had been destroyed as well. It's in that same area. But he assured us that we wouldn't be running into any enemy troops. Not after that massive bombing. He said, we bombed the shit out of them. You're not going to have to see anybody over there. Well, we always like to hear that kind of talk, whether it's true or not. It makes you feel good anyway. So we geared up, and there was 6 of us or 7 of us in our team, and we were inserted on the Vietnamese side of the border. And we crossed over into Laos to judge the effect of this bombing campaign. So we found ourselves a good observation point, and we scanned the area. And before too long, we saw quite a number of troops crossing through that same area. And so our sergeant told us, we're going to get closer, see what we can find out. And so we moved on down into that area by the trail. And the monsoon had started, and it was raining, and there was a mist. There was a river between us and our objective. We stayed on one side of the river and we tried to see what was going on where the trail crossed that other side of the river. Couldn't really see too much, but we could hear activity. And then we heard what seemed to be a bulldozer. And we couldn't see it through the mist or the foliage there, but it sure sounded like a bulldozer clearing away trees and continuing to make a road or something, clearing away debris. So we stayed where we were and hoped that in the morning we could, that mist would clear and we could see more. And in the morning we heard that bulldozer again and the sound of a truck coming along. And as the mist slowly cleared, we saw this 4x4. It was loaded with gooks, with shovels, and they were moving on down this nice road that they had created. And it was all muddy because of all the rain and everything like that. And the truck was getting stuck, and it was wallowing from side to side. And when it got stuck, they'd all get out and they'd push it. We could watch them pushing it. And they were singing as they did it too. They had this chant going. And they were working with their shovels and everything, and they're all pushing the truck, and the truck's moving along. They were pretty well organized there. There were lots of them. They were doing a good job at clearing away the debris and moving along that road. And that road was probably better after the bombing than it was before, because a lot of the trees have been pulverized by the bombs. So, our objective, there was no question about it. That was still an active route. And we hated to go back and tell the Air Force major that his guys had wasted their ammo on that bombing raid because they were working away better than ever. So we pulled back, and we figured we've done our job. We're out there for now 3 days, looking at the area. Counting the troops and doing what we normally do, what recon did. How many troops are there? What are they carrying? Where are they going? Do they have any their equipment? All of this normal stuff that was part and parcel of our mission. We could have called in airstrikes or artillery. If we had the resources available to us, but our objective had been satisfied. We were content to provide the information. And I think we saw about 150 people across 150 soldiers. Some of them had bicycles, and they had like an extension on the bicycle, so they could push it, and it was loaded with rice and things, or maybe ammo. I don't know. But they were moving along that trail, moving along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, one after another. So we pulled back, and we figured we're going to get extracted. We've been out there now about a week. We crossed over the border again into Vietnam, and we were going to get picked up on that side of the border. I guess they didn't want the embarrassment of having a helicopter shot down in Laos when Nixon was saying that we didn't have any combat troops there. So we pulled back and we climbed up to where we thought would be a good extraction point, and we stayed there because it's continued to rain. Got real foggy, and we knew we couldn't get the birds in to get us out. Well, so we sat on top of that mountain, and the days went by. And after a week, we only carried food for a week. And if that, I didn't. Even then, it was only like a can a day, maybe, and some crackers or fruitcake or something like that. Scarcely enough to keep us alive. But we'd rather carry ammunition than carry food. And there was no problem with water. We had plenty of water because of the monsoons. Streams were everywhere, and You know, we could fill up our canteens, but we didn't have any food. So we're sitting there, and the days are going by, and everybody had run out of food, except Truman. Truman found a single can of beanies and weenies in his pack that he hadn't eaten at the bottom of his pack. And he started rationing that out, a bean at a time. So we were all bidding on his beans, or bean as it was. You know, the price kept on getting higher and higher as we started getting hungrier and hungrier. But actually, after a few days, it's sort of strange. You know, we didn't really. At least I didn't really feel that much hunger. And you know, I don't know if that's a sign of starvation or what. But after the first week, I started. You know, it wasn't bothering me. I didn't get any hunger pains. What I did get were these vivid dreams of feasts. You know, big turkey, big steak dinners. You know, all of these things, you know, went through I'd be dreaming about the wonderful feasts we had for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I had a pad of paper. I had a notebook. I'm supposed to, you know, that I carried to take notes, you know, on enemy troop movements or something. And I'd draw out a picture of a hamburger, and I'd rip off the page, and I'd give it to the other guys and see which one would bid the most for that page with a hamburger on it. And you know, we passed the time that way. They were a good group of guys. I have to say, you know, they were tough, and they had spirit, and they knew how to take adversity. I mean, it'd be terrible if you're sitting there with a group of guys and one guy starts complaining about the lack of food and how crappy everything is. I mean, we did that. Marines always complained. Well, you know, in general, you know, we knew we couldn't do anything about it, so we just sat there and made the best of it. So I made slices of pizza, and I handed them out, and the guys would eat the paper. Oh gosh! And we also had other things to do to keep us occupied. The slugs were coming out in droves, so we would have games, and you know, not the slugs, what do you call them? The leeches. You know, you think I'd know the name now. Leeches. Well, there were a couple types of leeches. They were the kind you normally found, which were they started out maybe about an inch long, and they could, you know, maybe grow to about 3 inches long if you let them get a good hold on you, didn't see them. But there were also these big black leeches that were by the river there. And boy, you got one of those suckers on you, and it would grow to be about 5 inches long. So, being young, foolish Marines, we used to bet on whose leeches could stick on the longest. So we'd have pick up a leech, or have a leech. We'd put them on our arm, and we'd see which one. We'd bet at one another as to which leech would fall off first. And Truman had picked up, and I don't know where, he got this big black leech, and that one, of course, that thing was huge and really disgusting looking. We used to have to, we couldn't pull them off. You know, if you pull them off, the head might remain in your arm. We used to hit them with a bug. We call them bug spray that we had. It wasn't a spray; it was a bug juice that we had. And we hit them with that stuff, and it was instantaneous. They'd shrivel up and die. And we used to, you know, of course, have that stuff all over us, but that didn't protect us you know, in the rainy season. You'd get leeches on you, and they'd try to find the favorite spots, you know, of your body that were warm, protected, and furry. So you can imagine what those were. So we had to keep our eyes open for those damn leeches, make sure they didn't get a hold. They drained too much of our blood. And of course, so you know, here we are without food for a week or two, and we're draining our blood and feeding it to the leeches so we can keep ourselves happy and occupied. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Well, after the first week without food, you know, things started to get desperate. We'd call in the helicopters, and you know, they'd fly over the area sometimes, the spotter planes, the C-46s or the Hueys or the Cobras, whatever they had. You know, they'd see if they could find a way through that thick mist that was covering the mountains. And we tried to think, well, maybe we should move and try to get to a higher mountain, but there were no higher mountains around. Basically they were all socked in, if you could picture it. And of course the helicopter pilots, they can't fly blind like that, and particularly because the maps themselves weren't all that great. You know, they didn't have the radar and the sophisticated GPS systems that we have on planes today. They were just basically visual flight rules, so they could they'd have to see where they were going. Or they'd end up on the side of a mountain. And it continued to rain and rain and rain. You know, and after a while, even though the rain was relatively warm, but when you're wet like that, for a long period of time, you know, your body gets chilled, and of course everything starts to rot. even our boots started to get that mold, that green mold on them. You know, everything was rotting, turning into the jungle. Well, we're laying there, and the rain's coming down, and you know, we heard the latest report that nobody could come in and get us. Well, we stayed there. Stayed there for days and days with the rain beating down. One day I woke up and I looked up, and there was this gigantic bird perched on this tree limb over us. And I poked Truman rather. This is my nickname. I poked him, and I pointed to this giant bird, and he goes, "Goddamn buzzard! He's not going to get me." And he takes a stick and he throws it at the thing. This bird really was enormous. The branch was about as thick as my arm, and it was bending under his weight. I've never seen such a big bird in all my life. It's probably a condor, which I think condors are part of the vulture family. So maybe he was right. But I wasn't thinking to scare him away. I was hoping that we could kill him and eat him. but Thurman had thrown the stick, and it put out its huge wings and just soared off. And that was the end of that. And there was nothing else to eat. You know, we couldn't hunt anything because we'd hear a shot, fire a shot, even if we did see something. We fired a shot, and the NVA would be on us in no time. We couldn't do that, and there was nothing that we knew to eat. There were some mushrooms growing, but we didn't know whether they were good or not, and none of us wanted to take a chance. We didn't know what they were poisonous or not. Most everything in Vietnam was poisonous. You know, all the snakes that were there were 100 varieties of snakes, and 99 was poisonous, and the other one would eat you whole. That's what they said. But no, we didn't want to take a chance, and we didn't see any animals anyway. We didn't see any birds other than that one condor. So now it's coming on to our third week, and this is now getting serious, because you could just feel the strength, ebbing out of your body. Finally, we called in and said, God, you got to find a way to get us out of here. Got to do something. And of course, the pilots, they'd love to get us out. They were, they were really good guys. We used them all the time, and they knew that we were in trouble. And so they suggested, well, why don't we do this? You pop smoke, where you are, and we'll see, and at the top of that mountain, and if we see the smoke, maybe we could just come down the mountain, down by where we see the smoke, and we could land, or at least, get you out somehow. So, well, that sounded good to us, but there was no real landing zone that we could see that he could get into. But we figured, well, we have to try something. So we popped the smoke, and we could hear the chopper overhead. And he's like, we see the smoke, we see yellow smoke. Is that you? We said, yes. And he said, well, we got something new to try for you. So, okay, what's that? He goes, well, it's called a net, and we're gonna drop this net down, and you can clamber onto the net. And this was the first time that I think that had ever been used, at least by us in Vietnam. What it was a cargo net that had been cut down to fit inside a C-46, and it was rolled up inside the C-46, and they could drop it, and like a regular cargo net. It was maybe about 50 feet, 75 feet. So what do? We had no real choice. So we got our gear together, and we made our way to the very top of the hill. And boy, our packs, we didn't have any food in them anymore. They probably weighed only maybe 40 pounds or something like that. Well, we were so debilitated. When you almost had to drag the pack. In fact, one guy couldn't get the pack on. We had to help him. He wasn't strong enough after that, after lack of food for 2 weeks. Couldn't do it. We had to help him. And we struggled up to the top of this hill. He had the helicopter overhead. And we could see the helicopter was kind of pushing away the mist a little bit. And we knew he was really close because the noise was really bad. And all of a sudden, we see this cargo net drop down in front of us. And we all clambered up on it. And we didn't know whether we should climb up on it or what. But we climbed up about 10 feet on it. And the things that we took, the helicopter, once we were all on it, it took off. And we're flying through the air there. It was quite an experience. We're sitting on the rungs of this thing and flying through the air. And as we went through the air, the net sort of went on at an angle. So you're holding on there, and this flying 75 miles an hour through the air, hundreds of feet above the ground. It was quite an experience, let me tell you. And this, I think Major Simmons, our major, was the one who created this idea of the ladder. We called it the ladder. But whatever it was a hell of a lot better than that damn jungle penetrator. It wouldn't have worked at all. So there was an evolution here of extraction methods, and I've got to hand it to him. If he was the one who thought of that idea or not, I don't know, but it saved a lot of men over time, and we practiced using that both to get extracted and to be inserted. And it worked fairly well. I mean, it had its problems too. It used to get caught up in trees and stuff like that, and it was kind of dangerous for the helicopter pilot. If that thing had got caught in a big tree, I don't know how they would have extracted it. They'd probably just dump it. But it worked very well for us. And even to the point where we could fire our weapons from it. There were a few times when we were engaged, and we actually were on the ladder, and we were firing down at the enemy that was coming toward us. So it had its advantages. Over all of them, I preferred the rope method. I guess they call it they gave it a name eventually, SOI or something. I don't remember. But we called it the rope. We called it the ladder and the rope. And don't ask me what I called that jungle penetrator. That piece of shit. That's what I called it. But anyway, so we got the helicopter landed in a river back a long ways from the border, where it was relatively safe, as safe as anything can be in Vietnam. And so they landed, and then we all got out of extracted ourselves from the ladder. We did have carabiners that we on our small rope that we clipped onto. We used to use that for the jungle penetrator, and we just clipped that on to the ladder, the cables on the ladder, and so we weren't going to be blown off or anything like that. We wouldn't have been blown off anyway because we were sitting and holding on, but just to be sure, you don't want to be blown off of that thing a few hundred feet in the air, that's for sure. So anyway, so the helicopter landed, and we all scrambled off of the ladder, and they, I guess they rolled it up again. I don't remember. I don't remember. We were on the helicopter at any rate, and I guess they must have pulled it in into the back of the helicopter. The Marine Corps never leaves any equipment behind, so we never met our equipment. So we got on the helicopter, and the crew chief goes, "We took a collection for you guys." Collection for us? Oh, what? What do you got for us? Came out with a big garbage bag, and it was just chock full of candy. Mars bars, Snickers, M&Ms, all this stuff. And our eyes lit up. We hadn't had anything to eat for 2 weeks. We started chomping down all this chocolate. And man, were we sick. Almost immediately. We were so sick. We had to practically crawl off the helicopter. And those guys were completely disgusted by us. We were in bad shape, let me tell you. Some sorry pups when we crawled out of that helicopter after eating all that chocolate and not having anything to eat for a week or two. But that's the way it was. I make light of it here, but it could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. Thank you.